Welcome back, everybody, to another roundtable. Today, we are talking to three of the best NAIA coaches in the country. We have Billy Berry from Tennessee Wesleyan, Brad Neffendorf from LSU Shreveport, and of course, everybody's favorite, Jeremy Sheetinger. We did this last time. Which one is it?
We did it. Just go Sheets. It's like Prince. You don't have to worry about any other first or last name.
But on the opening one, I need to make it official on the opening one. So what is it? Sheetinger?
Sheetinger. Let it flow.
All right, there you go. And everybody's favorite, Jeremy Sheetinger. Okay, let's get to from Georgia Gwinnett. Let's jump right to it. I showed my ignorance before we hit record, and I think it says something about the whole baseball community in general because if anything, I feel like I should know this. I asked Coach Berry when he came in and we started talking about Tennessee Wesleyan, like, hey, are you guys, how are you guys? Are you good? And at that point, I was told that it would pretty much be like me asking Vanderbilt if they were any good. So, Coach Berry, tell us about your program and just how good you guys are.
We are obviously located in Athens, Tennessee. Like I said, we're about 45 minutes south of Knoxville, about 45 minutes north of Chattanooga, right on I-75. We're a school of about 1,000 students. We have about 900 day students on campus, and then we have about another 100 students that are in a nursing school down in Knoxville. Our baseball program has been around since 1854, which is kind of cool. So it's a long-standing tradition. I don't know how good they were back in 1854. We can't find the logs, but we've been fortunate enough to win 2 national championships in the last 7 years, in 2012 and 2019. We've been to 5 the last 10 World Series during the dating back to 2000. I think one of the things that is interesting about our program that people don't really realize is obviously small school program, but has a lot of big names that come out of it. We've got former coaches. Ashley Lawson was a coach here, played here as an alumni, but actually coached here from 2000 until 2005, is now the special assignment to the general manager for the New York Mets. Willie Bosk was a player here and also an assistant here, was a coordinator with the Padres, was also a scout with the Padres, and now works for Diamond Sports out of Miami, which is an agency that they manage guys like Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, and then also Stephen Baker, who's an area guy with the Padres as well now. Lee Bryant, who's an area guy with the Boston Red Sox. So we've been able to turn out a lot of pro guys as far as guys that started their career here and then moved on, which has really helped us in the recruiting efforts as far as not being able to get everywhere all the time, but then having guys out there. We've had 26 guys drafted, in the last 10 years, which has helped as far as just the exposure to the program. We've had 31 guys that signed independent contracts. We've had, I think, 17 guys that have signed free agent contracts after that 10-year period. So we've been able to put some guys out and do some things. So long-standing tradition. We've won 18 straight conference championships, either winning it outright, winning the regular season in the tournament, or winning both. So I'm very humbled. I say this all the time. I was a guy that was at Bluefield College that didn't have a winning record for 2 years as a head coach, and was 28 years old when they gave me this job, and I knew Ashley. I had a previous relationship with Ashley and Willie, and so I'm humbled every day that I get the opportunity to be the head coach here. We've had some great assistants. Brad was here with us for was here with me for the last 2 or 3 years. And before he went on to LSU Shreveport, or when he went to Southern Illinois and LSU Shreveport, Stephen Baker was an assistant here. I've had Matt McGuire, who's now the head coach at Roanoke College, was an assistant here. Eric Moss, who's an AD, who's an assistant AD now at University of Montevallo. So I work with some really cool guys, and really had an opportunity to really make some great relationships. So that's a little bit about us. And we're a baseball school. I think if you ask people, we don't have football, so this is kind of the next best thing. So.
Boom, drop the mic. Coach Neffendorf, you're trying to recruit me, but so is Coach Berry. So how are you, Coach Neffendorf, going to get me? What is the selling point for LSU Shreveport? What do we got there?
Probably the cost of school. State school, $7,500 a year. I think you can get as low as $68. It just kind of depends on the amount of credits that you take. Locations Location's big. We're the second, I think actually the third largest city in the state of Louisiana. I think it's 275,000 people. It's got, everything that you can think of. It's a casino-driven town. So, we got 7 of those here. Facilities are good. It's a great program. It's got a lot of tradition. Been to 3 World Series. I think the last one was in 2012, and they lost in the game to get into the national title to Tennessee Wesleyan, which was their first national title that year. Been to 17 straight regionals. They've won a total of 15 conference titles. So it's a program that's got tradition. I think, when I got into NAIA back in 2010 when I was at Campbellsville then, that was one of the first names that we knew about that year, that I got a chance to understand and kind of, it was back when NAIA was there's a lot of names that are not in it anymore. And, some of the big names are still standing. There's, a lot of the big names either moved on to Division II, but we've had teams come in. Georgia Gwinnett came in, and they're, one of the predominantly big forces now in NAI. But, Shreveport's still here, and I've always known about it. And we've had some assistants and head coaches that have moved on, obviously that I have not had a chance to work with. But, Chris Bertrand was a big part of their success back in 2010, 11, and 12. When he was underneath Rocky Musgraves, and Chris moved on and is now the recruiting coordinator and pitching coach at Northwestern State. And since he's been there, they've been tremendous as well. So I think that attests to what he's been able to do. And Rocky is not coaching right now, but he's a guy that left here, went to Northwest Nazarene at Division II in Idaho, and Brent LaValle, who I just took over for, is in the Blue Jays organization. So I think kind of like Wesleyan, there's been 34 guys that have moved on to play some form of professional baseball here. I think the one thing that you can look at, and obviously Gwinnett is starting to do a lot of those things in their short span that they've been on NAIA. All the predominantly big teams at this level have a lot of really good tradition and a lot of guys that have moved on. And, being that it's small college though, a lot of them have a lot of really good things to offer. And I think we do as much as, everybody else in NAIA. So, we're located out here, obviously, about 10 miles from the Texas border. We're real close to Arkansas, Mississippi. We're in the Red River Conference, which I think is getting better. Our Lady of the Lakes has gotten a lot better, and they had several, I think 10 wins against ranked teams last year. LSUA, who with us, we're both part of the 4 schools underneath the LSU system, and LSU Unis is the other one outside LSU down in Baton Rouge. So, I think the biggest thing for us is the degrees that we have to offer. We have everything. We got, I think, the 4th ranked MBA program in the country online for kids that are, going to get masters. So, with so many grad transfers out there right now and the cost of school, I think that's something that we can provide for some of these guys looking to move on and finish in their last year. So, really good place here, just like, the rest of these schools that we have in this right now.
All right. So I'm so happy Coach Sheets introduced me to you guys, because I thought he was the ambassador of NAIA, but now I'm realizing he just plays one on social media. You guys are really the NAIA dudes of all dudes. So
the Godfather is on the call. Let's just be aware of that.
I see. So, okay. So Sheets, you got to pull me away. I'm a recruit. You got to pull me away from these 2 schools. What's the selling point of Georgia Gwinnett?
Just bring them on campus. That'll do it.
Let's start with our campus. We've got a pretty good setup here, but we're trying to build the tradition that LSUS and Tennessee Wesleyan has. We're so far behind because we're literally an 8-year-old program. So out of dust, we create this NAIA athletic department, and we've been working hard to solidify ourselves at the top and then build upon it. But the school's only in its 16th year, so we're just the only school that's brick and mortar built after the year 2000. It's a 4-year school. We're the most ethnically diverse campus in the southeastern part of the country. We got 13,000 students. We are a state school, part of the USG system. Got a great setup, but I think the piece that Coach Stromdahl and the staff that was here, what they built was, man, winning is expected around here, and it's throughout our entire department. You should probably have on our tennis coach, who's won 11 national championships from the men and women. I think it's like 6 in a row on the men and 5 in a row for the women, but that sets the tone for the entire department here, where the expectation is pretty abundant. We're talking about softball, baseball, both soccers. Our job is to win the next national championship. And in 5 or 6 years, if we don't do that, I'll probably be hanging out with Billy in the dugout because I won't be here anymore. That's the scenario we're in. The expectation's there, but It's like Brad's situation. We're $5,800 a year, so it's extremely cheap. And then obviously we got some scholarship money on top of that. We have won 47 games a year average over the last 7-8 years, and going to the World Series 3 times. We just had our 22nd player signed professionally. So it's a similar situation to these other programs. We're trying to provide an experience where, just like, again, Neff and Billy are, where you can win a lot of games, you have a chance to win the last game of the year, but more than that, we're going to put you in front of professional scouts and give you an opportunity to chase that dream that we all have to go play professional baseball. And along the way, get a great degree, have a great experience, and obviously enjoy your time here being a Grizzly. So.
Nicely done, gentlemen. So even though I did not know Billy is the national champion of your league, I do know that your league is really good. And I also know that not many people are educated on how good NAIA baseball is. So I want to jump into that and really try to educate kids coming up through the high school system. Just listening to you guys, I mean, there was, I think, between all of you, you just mentioned like probably over 100 guys between the 3 of you that have gone on to play pro at some level. But I thought NAIA wasn't for good players, Billy. So what are we missing here, man?
I think what it is it's a unique opportunity, and every school is different in how they operate and what they do. You're going to have some schools that are, a lot of the schools are faith-based. So again, that plays into, kind of what their vision is and what they, what their expectation is and kind of what their mantra is for their programs is and what their outlook is, I guess. We're a Methodist school. So, with that being a Methodist school, that means our kids attend chapel 2 days a week, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's a lot different than just regular church or things like that. But most of the schools that are private are of some kind of faith-based. So that's one aspect that's a little bit different. I think what it does is it just creates a great opportunity, and I think you'll hear this echoed if you ask the same question over and over again. We are second, third, fourth chance youth. I mean, that's what we are. I mean, I think when you take on our philosophy is that we don't do a lot of high school kids. I'd say that probably 25, maybe 20 to 25% of our roster is made up of high school kids. The other 75% of our roster is made up of Division I, Division II, junior college transfers. So I think it creates a great opportunity for guys to look and say, okay, I came out of high school, I signed here, I was promised this, this, and this, and those things didn't come to fruition. It didn't work out. Now I'm in the portal. Now what do I do? And now all of a sudden, what wasn't maybe an option for you coming out of high school, with Gwinnett or LSU Shreveport or Wesleyan or Southeastern or some of the other really good schools, in the country, knocking on your door, and you going, hey, I'm going to, X, Y, Z, U, and it doesn't work out. Well, then it becomes an option the second time around. We've got guys that academically don't make it. They just can't get it done in the classroom. We've got guys that have off the field issues. I don't know what, I kind of know, what Neff's philosophy is because we were together for 2 years. And I know Jeremy and I talk a lot, but my philosophy is simple. I don't really care what happened at the last place you're at. I care what you do while you're here. So I think that's the one thing that we look at is for the first time in your life, somebody's going to, at least at Wesleyan, we're going to take that chalkboard of whatever you've done over a year, 2 year, 3 year span, and we're going to wipe that clean. And we're going to let you write another story. Now, if you choose to write the same story here that you wrote at the other place, well, that's probably not going to work out here either. But I think it's so much easier for guys, especially when they're coming to a place where they can take a deep breath and go, all right, the past is the past. Now I can move forward. And I'm not going to bring those things up, while you're here. So it's one of those things where, like I said, I just think it creates a unique opportunity that we are bought into giving guys second and third chances, because there's a lot of guys out there that need it at times. And, the one thing that I can sit here and tell you, Josh, is we're nobody's first choice. I've always said when they lay the hats down on the table, and they're doing signing day, you don't have a LSU hat, a Miami hat, a Texas hat, and there's the Wesleyan hat sitting over there, So we're nobody's first choice, brother. So it's one of those things where patience is, we really have to be patient with and calculated with what we do. But I think that, depending on what your philosophy is and depending on what your outlook is, as far as an institution, your program, especially in this day and age right now with the roster sizes, man, if you are a program that invests a lot into transfers, you're in the right spot right now because there's a lot of them out there.
Coach Neffendorf, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions or misunderstandings about NAIA baseball at the lower levels? Like I'm talking about like high school guys or maybe even junior college guys looking for a 4-year place to play. Like what are they missing in your opinion?
Well, I think with the lower kid, lower levels coming out of high school, it's small college baseball. So when they look at small college baseball, there's a lot of things, the resources and the facilities that, compared to some of, the Division I's, either mid-majors or whatnot, that's just not what they're looking for. A lot of these kids coming out of high school want to be invested in, a program in a school that's, got something going on campus. There's, a really big enrollment. They got things to do, big football games to go to. Like Wesleyan, even Gwinnett, we don't have football either. We got 6 sports. We got men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, tennis, and baseball. We're thinking about bringing softball in, but from a standpoint of, what the campus has to provide on a daily basis is going to be a lot less, than those major schools. I think the other thing is, Billy just hit on it a few minutes ago, and I'm exactly the same because I do believe in it because people gave me a million choices back when I was the guy that nobody wanted to be around is, they look at it, it's Bandit University, Renegades, all they want is, the win and loss column. They want the wins to be way more than the losses. They're going to go out and do anything they can to get a player. And, there might be programs like that. But I think we all, bust our tails and go get what we believe is a fit for us, with how we structure things and how we run it. And yeah, if you want to be competitive, and it might mean there's a yearly turnover of 15 to 20 guys. But for me, I'm okay with that because there's 15 to 20 more guys that I get to try to build a relationship with and get to help. Because like I said a second ago, I was somebody, and I still have my moments that nobody wanted to be around for a while. I was not pleasant to be around when I was in JUCO. And, but I do remember the guy that gave me several chances one summer, and I think it helped me tremendously. So, I'm just like Billy, and, with what he said, and I think there are a lot of misconceptions in regards to, I get it all the time. Hey, Coach, can you guys even give scholarship money? Well, yeah, we can. But, there's a lot of kids out there that believe the NAIA is suited, with the scholarship and the structure like the Division III is, where they can't give athletic money. Well, most NAIAs have a ton of money to work with, up to that 12, plus they can academically stack, some being like us, state schools. We have the ability to do some things with the financial aid as well that private schools can't. So, they're just not educated on it because like Billy said, an NAIA is nobody's first choice. It really isn't. It's always going to be the Division I or an upper level Division II or the junior college if you have the aspirations of trying to get in there and get to a major Division I or drafted right away, within the 1 year. So I think there's a ton of misconception.
Sheets, I probably should have started with this question before asking the other two, but what makes NAIA different from NCAA? So if somebody says, well, I don't understand, what's NAIA? What is it? I should have probably started there, but go ahead.
It's all good. It's a completely different association. I think that is the difference. You can name, if you ask any 16-year-old kid to name 30 NCAA schools, he's going to name all the sweatshirts he sees on the wall in the mall. So we get that, but it's a completely different association. As Billy mentioned, it's a lot of faith-based institutions. But you also, again, athletics in most NAIA scenarios really stirs the pot. You're talking about, especially for a small school that's an NAIA, maybe almost 50% of their student body could be from the athletic department. So, that money that's generated, that interest, that buzz, that spread, that admission spread, comes from the athletic department. So it's looked at a little bit differently. You have all varying degrees. There's certainly very small schools on the NAIA level that are going to be 500 to 1,000 students, all the way up to 13, 14, 15,000 students and everywhere in between. But I know from the baseball perspective, there's only 188 of us. So this level is a very small level, and it's really niche. And Billy would tell you this, it's sometimes hard for a kid in Tennessee to take off driving. He wants to go watch a college game where we all know where he's going. He's going to Knoxville. And if he's not going to Knoxville, he's going over to Nashville to watch Vandy. He's got to drive a little bit to get in to find Athens. And I think when they land there, and just like when they land at Shreveport, and just like they land here at Gwinnett, you start to see that, and I saw a great graphic earlier in quarantine that really laid out the levels. I think we probably would all agree with this, and pardon me for saying it, but our level, the top end of our level, just like the top end of most levels, man, can compete with anybody. So the top end of NAIA would look like the top end of Division II, which again, speaking very frankly, would walk into a lot of mid-major programs and they'd have a tough time competing with us. That's how the levels work out. The top end of every level is going to be equal to the talent level you'll see at most programs. Now, can any of us walk in and compete with a Power 5 school? I mean, maybe for an inning, and it's going to get out of hand, but I mean, our talent level in terms of velos or in terms of skill sets or in terms of tools is pretty comparable to what you're looking at on that beyond Power 5 all the way down through Division I. But again, having a kid come through and actually see that for himself, sometimes it's hard to do. As we all probably do in recruiting, it's an educational process. Like, you get on a phone with the transfer and maybe he's never considered the NAIA level, and you have to explain to them and educate them on the talent level and the level of play. Again, as we all mentioned, the opportunity to push you into professional baseball, it still exists here, but you just don't get the coverage that you would. And thank God to Cody and Robbie and those guys, what they did with NAIA ball a few years ago. I think that's put a real positive spotlight on the level and on the level of coaching, the players themselves, and helping more people see what we're doing. I'll echo what both those guys says about the misconceptions. And probably again comes back to the talent equation. I also go to this, man. I think because it is a lot of transfer world that we live in. We're dealing with D1, D2, and junior college transfers, that you're not getting the personal relationship, you're not getting the development piece. And I'll speak for these other two because I know it's dead on. I mean, we take development very seriously. I mean, whatever player shows up on our campus, we're looking at it, hey, if we've got you for a year, if we got you for 2, maybe even 3, our job is to increase that level of talent, enhance those skill sets, so you get a chance to put yourself in front of scouts and play professional baseball. We take development very seriously. Do we have the budgets that the upper end Division I has? Not at times, but we're able to get creative and work through that and give you an opportunity to play professional baseball. I think that's the piece that most, again, high school players or travel ball coaches or high school coaches, our names just aren't affluent out there in lexicon of baseball programs until, as Billy knows, been doing it the longest, you get those coaches that show up and they watch you play or they come watch you train, they go, oh, I'll never recommend a guy. And when I have a guy, he'll be a dude. Be like, I'll make sure I send you a dude. I'm not going to send you the guy that hits 8th in my high school lineup. He can't play here for you. That's the part of the educational process. I know that even in this area, being 8 years old, we're so far behind all these other we're trying to build that understanding. Come watch us play, man. You'll see. So when the average coach calls, hey, I got 2 guys for you. I bet you don't. I love you and I appreciate it. I value that, but I bet you don't. But that's fine. Tell them to go to junior college. We'll watch as they progress and we'll call them in 2 years. That's kind of the way that we've ran shop.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me, Coach Barry. I want to just quickly touch on the high school kid for a second, because what you guys say makes complete sense. It doesn't really look like at least your kind of programs, it looks like a tough place for a high school player to even make it, because you're not taking a high school player necessarily that's not hitting 3rd, 4th, 5th, playing short side. Like, the top end high schooler is what you want, but the top end high schooler also probably has options at other levels. So when does it make sense for a good high school player to come to an NAIA? Like, how do you, or is that just like not even worth too much effort on your guys' behalf to build a program because it's so hard to get them? Or I guess the question more is like, should high school players even be looking at NAIA schools?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the landscape of some of the programs, that's all they do is high school kids. I mean, they've got programs that are very competitive, that are high school based, or at least half their roster is high school based. I don't think the one misconception that I don't want to put out there, and I know these two don't either, is that a high school player or a program that recruits high school kids can't be successful. That's not the case. Right. I think it's personal choice. I think it's also where you are located. In Tennessee, we're located in a state that has 12 junior colleges throughout the state. We have what I think is probably one of the best top 3 junior colleges in the country in Walter State. So now all of a sudden, we're trying to recruit some kid from Knoxville who's a really good player, or let's say he's interested in our program, but he's also interested in Walter State. Well, here's the thing. Tennessee Promise in the state of Tennessee allows you to go to junior college for free for the first 2 years. So hey, we're going to offer you, let's say, $15,000 out of this $34,000, expense, or you can go to junior college for free and you can play for one of the top 3 junior colleges in the country. Hell, if it's my kid, I'm telling him where to go. You know what I mean? So I think it depends on the area that you're in. Like North Carolina, there's some schools in North Carolina that they're, that the junior college, there's only 2 NAIA schools in the state of North Carolina right now. So now all of a sudden it becomes, you're not fighting against one another and those sort of things. So, I think there's high school kids out there. We have a kid right now. I mean, Brad and I, recruited a kid, Chandler Kendall, out of a small school in Fannin County, Georgia, 2 years ago. Chandler hit 3rd in their order, was a guy that was, 88 to 89, touching 90, 91. He wanted a small school experience. He had Division I offers. He had junior college offers, but he wanted a smaller school experience. We got in there pretty early. Brad and our other assistant, Adam, did a really good job making a relationship with his family. So it's not unheard of to get a guy that's a very talented high school kid. But I think your area really plays into that. Like where Jeremy is, where Sheets is. I mean, come on. I mean, you're talking about, there's high school players that are really, really good that are slipping through the cracks, but you've got junior college, you've got Division II, you've got Division I. There's got to be a lot of clogs, that break up in the sink before they get down to, to where we are. And that's kind of where it is. The other thing that I think is cool is we'll identify high school kids that are in our area that we know are going to go to Division I schools, but it might not be a fit. So what we do is we purposely recruit those kids, try to get them on campus, do that, so that if the rebound, if the ball comes off the backboard, we're there to pick up the rebound and say, hey, that was a school I visited. I made a relationship with those guys. I liked them. I feel like I had an opportunity to play a lot earlier there than I did, where I went. Let me give those guys a call and see if they're still looking. And so you can make a relationship with a guy that you have absolutely no shot at getting on the front door, but maybe you get him on, on the back end.
I really like how I see why they're calling you the Godfather. I like what you're saying here about some of this, because like I deal with coaches who are going after players that, to me, like if I were them, I feel like, why are you wasting your time? Like you have no shot. You're chasing a ghost. You already know this kid's being recruited by Power 5 schools. And some coaches say, well, if you're not chasing, you're not trying. And like I get that to a certain extent, right? But like what you're talking about is a lot of like, I understand I'm not going to be your first choice, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to be your choice in the end, and kind of laying the groundwork for that. That's a really interesting way of going about it. So Coach Neffendorf, what are NAIA coaches allowed to do right now in terms of recruiting? Because of course, everybody sees the D1s can't leave campus, blah, blah, blah. But what can NAIA do right now or cannot do right now?
I mean, I think technically we can go out and do whatever we want. There might be something based off the school. Maybe the school's not allowing them to go do anything. I know here, if we want to drive and go watch the collegiate summer ball game, or go somewhere else in the state. I mean, we got a little bit of a local league here too, and then we got this Southeast Collegiate League that's going on right now that actually has kicked off and been extremely competitive this year because there's so few leagues out there that it's flooded with Division I's all the way down to JUCO from some really good programs. But I mean, technically we're capable of going out and doing whatever, just like Sheets being able to go coach with the Canes, at our level, we're able to do those things. So there's not a lot of restrictions. I mean, somebody could probably call my kid up if he could have a conversation with him right now at the age of 3 and start recruiting him if they wanted to. I mean, it's realistically, it's just with, Jeremy said it a while ago, we're a totally different, level of institutions that doesn't really have anything binding with the NCAA. So our rules are different. And I think that is, goes along with one of the misconceptions a while ago that, maybe we didn't get into as well about just the differences and the things that we're allowed to do that the NCAA is completely different with. So.
Can you talk about some of those, go into more detail? Because I jokingly called earlier the NAIA the wild, wild west of college baseball. But it does seem like, just in talking and learning a little bit about it, like there's some really fun differences about that, which make it a more, I don't know, laid back, casual, enjoyable, not so business-like atmosphere. Can you talk about some of those, Brad?
You know, I mean, I think it's what makes the level fun. I mean, you know, I think all of us eventually are going to run across, just like everybody will with the Power Fives and whatnot. But I think, you know, it's like when somebody jumps on the portal system and we find out about it, or there's a junior college kid that, you know, that's available and all of a sudden he doesn't have grades. Boom, we're all in there together trying to go at it and trying to, you know, inform that kid on why our school is better than the other one. And you're going to get that throughout the top 10. We're all going to be on the same guys. You know, and I think that might be what kind of kickstarts some of the misconceptions about it, maybe being the Wild Wild West or whatnot, is because, you know, it is what it is. I mean, there might be a kid that was released for, you know, whatever incident it may be, and all of a sudden, oh, there we go, all the NAIs are on them. Well, I mean, I think it goes back to what Billy said a little bit ago and how we all, you know, kind of view things. Yeah, we want to be competitive and we want to put the best product out there. And maybe that kid might not be a fit for us, but, you know, if we truly don't care about what went on and we think we can help develop that kid as a person and maybe reinvent his story when he gets to us and help him move on, then, you know, I'm okay with doing that. And I think that's where some of the, you know, the views about our level get misconceived, because nobody really truly knows, you know, our approach to it and why we do what we do, because not too many ask. But I mean, everybody at this level is going to be a lot of the same guys, and it is going to turn into a little bit of that, you know, everybody's fighting for somebody, and it may create some things that give it a little bit of that Wild Wild West look.
Coach Sheets, what are some of the rules or some of the rules that are either in place or not in place compared to the NCAA that make the NAIA a more fun league to be in?
Well, I know one is, and thank God we don't, is like a recruiting calendar. You know, our recruiting never stops. And you can ask these two guys and probably ask our wives. Recruiting never stops. I mean, there's a lot of times I'm texting at the dinner table because that's what you got to do to stay on top of the guys you need. The beauty of that allows us some freedom. Like when we do go out, like if we decide to go to a showcase or some event, and this is, I love this piece, where all the NCAA schools are stuck behind that fence, maybe poking through a net, and we can walk right out there and start timing 60s and hanging out in the dugout and introducing ourselves to players. There's just no restrictions in terms of what we're able to do. And I think that's obviously that's kind of like a smart decision. I think the association made, that we need some legs up in certain scenarios. So let's not restrict us with the calendar. Let's not prohibit us from doing some things that maybe the NCAA does. And that's where a lot of that Wild Wild West, or Billy's heard this one, you know, the rule books this thin. Like there are some things that we kind of open up that allow our level and our coaches to explore. One of the biggest is the lack of a national letter of intent. You know, so again, if a player commits to us, that's not necessarily binding.
That's what makes it the Wild Wild West.
Well,
I think if you want to hit something, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think when you look at the misconception, that right there is what makes it the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, and it also goes. It depends on how coaches themselves manage that. Like if Billy or Brad, just because I've known these guys forever, if they sign a kid, I mean, we're friends on a deeper level. I'm never going to call and go, hey man, I know it says you committed to Tennessee Wesleyan, but I tell you what, let's try to do this backdoor deal. That's where I think you start to get the Wild Wild West, Billy, because you've been part of this, where some just, they know there's no letter of intent, and they just step right over that line in the sand and say, yeah, I know there's not, but we can offer you this, we can do that. And two, it's the coach, but it's also the player. There's also players that are out shopping, and again, letting a coach, just so he'll back off for a minute and say, hey, you know, I'm committed. I'll commit to you, coach. Great. But he's still shopping himself around. And those aren't the guys that we like to spend time with. I can speak to those two on that. Like, those aren't the kids that we really want to be around. It's not the coaches that I want to bring into my inner circle either. I think it's the ones that we don't have that letter, but let's all treat this like grown adults. If Billy beats me out on a guy, dude, tip of the cap, man. I hope he works out, just like you did with the shortstop. Good luck, man. Tip of the cap, man. I hope he works out. And we just got to go find the next player. So I think there's that letter of intent. Now, I don't know how Neff, we haven't talked about this, but I know, Billy, we've talked. Would we like to see that? Would you like to see that accountability piece in place? I know I would. I think it'd be great. It's all about peace of mind. You don't worry about players going out and somebody trying to backdoor you. But I also think, too, if that's happening, then what kind of relationship did you have with the kid to begin with? How secure were you with that commitment? What does his word, you know, what does that mean to him? And maybe that's not the guy you want. But those are the things that I think jump off the page of Could we clean up? Maybe, but that's where the differences in the levels usually land.
That would be me all day. I would go coach in the NAIA. I would do no research. I would do no recruiting. I would just look for who you guys got, and I'd go try to pick them backdoor all day. That is the greatest system I've ever heard. I would contribute to that.
Josh, we would not be sharing beers at the ABCA convention. I know that.
Well, brother, let me tell you, you wouldn't be the only one.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
One
I mean, just people don't have to do their own work. Just, all right, where are these kids? All right, let's go get them. Coach, question to you, though. What to you makes the NAIA, what's unique about the NAIA that makes it more fun than what we see at the NCAA?
For me, the most glaring piece is the fact that when our kids, we don't have restrictions on, how much time we can practice. We don't have restrictions on how long we can be in the weight room. We don't have restrictions on, we don't have to log stuff at the end of the week. And, I think, obviously, when our kids are on the practice field, we're on the practice field. When our kids are in the weight room, we're in the weight room. When our kids are in study hall, we're the ones doing it. I mean, I think that's the thing. We don't have this huge, which for the schools that have it, these huge support staffs with all these people, it's great. I mean, if we had the ability to have this huge support staff, we'd take advantage of it as well. But, I think it goes back to that relationship piece. I think Jeremy hit on it a little bit earlier when he said development. I think development's kind of twofold. You're getting a lot of these guys when they've made a lot of mistakes or something's happened or, there's been some kind of, there's a reason why they're here. I've always said that the line for a reason why a guy makes it to an NAIA school goes down the street and around the block. It takes a while to tell the story. But I think that's the development piece too, is that you may only get some of these guys for 12 to 24 months. And that development piece, because this is the last house on the block. You've been to all these other places and this is the last house on the block. There's nowhere to go. All right. There's no level under NAIA. All right. You can, and I've yet to see a guy that comes down that goes back up. And, so it's one of those things where I think the development of the person, I think the development of the player, most of these guys, when they get to us, they're 20-some years old. How much better of a player are we going to make them? I don't know, but we got a really good shot to get them ready for what life's going to look like because not everybody's going to play professional baseball. So I think that's the cool part for me is that we're with them every minute of every day. Whatever it is that they do, we're there because, we make the hotel reservations. We set up the meals. We run practice. We run study hall. We run the weight room. So I think that's the cool part is that, you're really able to kind of identify on a daily basis because you're not just with them for, let's say, the 2.5 hours or the 3 hours you're practicing and then somebody else gets them in the weight room and somebody else gets them in study hall, that sort of thing. So I think that's one of the biggest differences is that there's just no real time restrictions on us. Not that anybody takes advantage of it. We don't have to, that's the cool thing is that Big Brother's not standing over top of us saying, hey, you got to be done at this time or this time.
I think it sounds like you guys kind of get the best of the NCAA and the best of the junior college lifestyles mixed together. Like you talk about the close-knit group, like, you're driving the bus almost. So you're making the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches together kind of thing, where that's what the JUCO guys love about JUCO, right? And just that part of it. But then you're also offering the 4-year experience. It's really unique. Coach Neffendorf, guys moving up, I know I've heard this. I know that it's something that is a pet peeve of NAIA coaches. And kids will ask because they just simply don't know. Like, hey, coach, if I come to your school and then let's just say I'm throwing 95 in 2 years, can I transfer to a Division I? Coach Neff, is that okay?
Well, you better be graduated. And there are examples of that this year. I'll just use. Where I used to be, my brother's at right now, probably their best guy the last couple of years. He ended up graduating, and obviously he gets this year back. And I mean, it is a mid-90s arm that had a little bit of pro attention, but due to the way the draft is structured this year, and now he's moving on to a Division I as a grad transfer. So, that's going to be pretty much the only way that's going to happen for these guys, but it is a deal. It is an option. And I think going forward with these kids getting semesters back and years back, I look at our roster this year, 90% of my juniors that are coming back now as juniors that were, because they got, you know, a year ahead now in academic, but get that year back. I mean, plenty of them are gonna graduate, and, you know, if they have that ability, they have that option. So, you know, I think everything happened with the virus is kind of leaning that, you know, in that direction now, with a lot more having the ability to be able to transfer up if they're a grad student.
So what about, and I'm sorry if I missed that. I'm trying to think of more questions because you guys, I mean, I'm really interested. I'm learning a lot right now. Without the virus, normal circumstances, can they go from NAIA and transfer up? Can a Division I team steal them from you?
Not typically. No, they would, you know, have to meet certain requirements. They would have to probably sit out a year, but you vary. I don't remember the last time I've seen it. Billy, Jeremy, I don't know when you guys have, but I can't remember the last time that I've seen that happen with all the grade requirements and you know, academics and, you know, just everything that goes on. It's, you know, it's obviously very easy for them to transfer down, but like he said a little bit ago, they don't come down and go back up. So
I think it would be more the ability, yes. You know, the academics, maybe that's the holdup, you know, because the requirements are so much different as far as, and you also have to look at it from the standpoint, is it a high school kid, is it a JC kid, is it a kid that transferred down? So there's, you know, ability is a part of it, but there's a whole host of hoops to jump through for a kid to go from a 4-year NAIA school to a 4-year Division I school. Unless, like you say, the easiest way would be as a grad transfer.
Coach Sheets, are you coaching travel baseball right now because you need to recruit or because you just love coaching baseball?
Look, I like to get back to the game. You know, I think, no, I'm coaching purely for recruiting purposes, 100%. This is what we were talking about a minute ago. Like, I'm still getting to know Georgia. We're still a program that is not as well known in the area despite the success. And I went out for about 2 weekends and I'm sitting there taking some notes and I'm circling some guys and I'm going, but if whoever, School X, walks in right now and says, hey, we'd love to have you, there he goes. They don't hit the floor, like Billy said a minute ago. Kids do not hit the floor in Gwinnett County and say, I can't wait to be a Grizzly. They want to be a Bulldog, and if they can't be a Bulldog, they want to be a Yellow Jacket, and they can't be a Yellow Jacket, they'd rather go to Gordon State. That's just the scenario we're in. And so I think I just looked at it and I had vented to Jeff Petty, who's the president of the Canes. I vented to him a couple weeks ago. I'm like, man, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my time trying to get ahead. And I do the same thing that Billy does. We talk to some high school guys, planting some seeds, knowing that maybe it comes to fruition down the road. But I just called him and he calls me 2 weeks later and says, man, if you're interested, this will get you out of the house, which I was looking for an opportunity to do. But it'll get you in the dugout with some kids that, you know, they're all Power 5 type kids. And maybe in a couple of years, that tree starts to reap some fruit. And more than that, I'm able to be in the dugout, walk across the way, go speak with the other coach and get a feel for what's going on across the way. So I'm going to be out recruiting anyway. I might as well be in the dugout, might as well get paid doing it, but also might as well try to put myself in a scenario where maybe a transfer comes and it's a different level of kid than maybe we'd have access to any other way because there's a relationship there. So I am in the travel ball space, and I'll add this. I'm attacking it from a perspective of a college coach. I came in, my last weekend was the first weekend I'd been with the team, and I came in and started coaching right away. We started talking about base running. We started talking about offensive approach. I started coaching because I'm not going to be signing up for a team that, hey, we got a lot of really good kids. Let's just stay out of their way. I hear you, but let's also help them in the IQ sense, because that's the part that all of us struggle with, is when you do get a player that's been in the showcase circuit, the IQ sometimes falls behind. I don't want to be part of that. I want to be part of the solution that we're talking the game and helping them see the game a little bit differently, teaching the gray areas, and helping them obviously become better baseball players. That's the way I've approached it, and I've had a pretty good time doing it so far.
Have you had any, what's been the feedback from your NCAA coach friends? Are they like, this is bullshit, this is not fair?
1,000%. Like,
right.
Absolutely. Like, can't believe you're doing, like, but again, I think if they sort through it and they're really good friends, it's like, it's pretty smart. That's what and again, dude, thank God for my wife. She just knew that I just gotten back into coaching. Like, and then you take the season away. So like, I've got this void in my heart, and I just want to be in a dugout. I just want to be around some players. I just want to hit a fungo. I just want to talk the game. And she said yes to it. So yeah, there's been some I probably don't hear a ton of that, but the ones that come back to, man, but it makes sense, especially from the way we recruit, as Billy mentioned and Neff hit on too. We'd love to get a great high school player that hits in your 3-hole, your 4-hole. But until they start, sorting through the D1 sweatshirt, and they get to us, until that starts happening on a regular basis, man, we have to let that kid go find his way in life. And then, as Billy mentioned, they start to realize, I mean, this is a really good level. I can win here. I can get developed here. I can play professional baseball out here. And then they start coming, hopefully out of high school. We'll see if that happens.
Well, I mean, if any Division I coaches are complaining, you're just following the rules, right? Just like they follow the rules when they commit a 13-year-old. So what are you supposed to do?
And we're going to start doing that too. I'm going to go down and start coaching 12U next summer, and we're going to rack them up.
Let's go.
We're not doing that.
You start your own damn league. I think we got something here. We got a business model.
Oh man.
Okay, Coach Neff. High school kids, why is it a good idea for them to look at NAIA schools moving forward? And not just because of COVID, yes, because of COVID partly, but the game's growing. It's harder and harder to get opportunities elsewhere. Why should high school kids really sit down and take a hard look at what NAIA schools have to offer?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a complex question. I think that a lot of it has to do with what they're looking for. Some of them might be kids that excel in the classroom with a little bit of a smaller setting. Maybe the NAIAs out there that they're looking at. Billy talked about it a little bit ago, and one example would be Ben Real and Indiana University Southeast up in right past Louisville and in New Albany, Indiana. I mean, they make a killing on high school kids. That's all he wants. And they're 18-1 at the end of the year this year. They lost a game to go to the World Series back in 2017 to Kaiser. And they're nothing but high school with some 4-year and junior college filtered in. They're kind of the opposite. There'll be 20-25% with the 4-year and junior college, and the other 75% is high school. So, and that's a place, if you want to talk about why, they got, I think, the #1 business school in the country because they're part of the Indiana University system. It's like us here, we're part of the LSU system. So, with us in particular, I could say it would be a good fit. And we do have some really good high school kids. We had 2 of them this year. Our #1 was a kid that came through for 4 years. And a kid that was kind of our 2-3 was a freshman this year that really developed in the fall and took off. And he's a kid that nobody thought was going to pitch much. He got overlooked in a state where there's really good baseball here. And, the academic and athletic packages that you can get along with the type of degrees, here we can do some pretty amazing things for high school kids with the in-state tops money they can get. We're not quite as cheap as Jeremy is, being $5,800 a year. But when you look at ours, and we've got kids, that one in particular high school kid that I talked about that developed, his package was unbelievable when I looked at it. I mean, he's getting money back in the pocket for 4 years. He's going to get a really good degree, and he's going to get a chance to pitch for 4 years, which he already did starting this year. So it could be the setting. Maybe they want something that's a little bit more low-key from a standpoint of the amount of kids and enrollment and, just the campus size that they're around. And maybe that's what that individual needs. But I think it's tough to pinpoint on anything in particular, but these 2 guys hit on it as well. We get more time with them, so we get more time to develop them in a lot of different areas. And I think that's the piece that is so big, is with us getting more time, the relationships that you have the chance to build with these kids, because we are the baseball operations. We are the hotels. We are if we have a meeting or, whatever it is, we don't have to log in or log something at the end of the week and make sure, hey, we went 5 minutes over the practice time. That was by choice if we did that. So, from the personal standpoint of what you get a chance to develop with these kids, that's something I think that, at our level is a lot more, the ability to do that is a lot more here rather than having to really make sure that we're watching the time clock. It's the relationship piece is probably #1 for me.
Right. Yeah, this is all very enlightening to me. I mean, I'm learning a lot, and I mean, it sounds like an awesome opportunity. And I'm just as guilty as the kids at not knowing enough about this, no doubt. And I feel like not that I'm the expert or the ESPN analysis of college baseball, but I feel like I'm pretty well in touch with college coaches and college baseball. And so for me to not know any of this, like I can't imagine what the normal high school family, doesn't know. So, along those lines, Coach Barry, what do we need to do to promote the level more and to promote the conference more and get it out there?
I think it's kind of like Jeremy said earlier, man. Go watch a game. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, it's go watch this level of baseball and see what, and make your own opinion. I mean, I've said before that, we'll play anybody anywhere. And I'm not afraid to – I've never been afraid to get beat, So it's one of those things where I would love to play Division I schools. I would love to play Division II schools. I would love to get into this exhibition realm now that they're in where, they're playing these fall games. And, one, it kind of shows – it showcases our program, but it also shows our guys, hey, if you really want to get to where you want to get to, these are the guys you're competing against. It's not the guys that you're playing in the NAIA baseball with. These are the guys you're competing against. So, when you're sitting on your rear end and you're not in the cage or you're not in the weight room or you're not taking extra ground balls and doing those things, here's the guy that's up here, doing this. So I think that's the one thing. I think it's being open-minded. I think, I think our society is a little bit closed-minded. I think that baseball has evolved into a position now between social media and other things that if you're not committed by the time you're a sophomore in high school or you haven't signed a Division I scholarship or you haven't had the same opportunities as the guy who hits in the 3 or 4 hole on your travel team, then you wasted, all this time and money. I mean, I just think that's the thing is that, it's very tunnel visioned right now, I think, some of it, as far as – and rightfully so. I mean, I'm not saying that people are wrong for having that approach. We all want what – I've got 3 children of my own. We all want what is best for our child, and we all want to put our child in a position to have the opportunities that he or she wants. And, but at some point in time, I think we also have to look at where that stacks up. The one thing that I would say that I think would create a lot of closure to some of this is if you want to play college baseball – then be interested in the people that are interested in you. Because I think there's something to be said for being wanted. You know what I mean? I mean, it's one of those things when, when we're calling a kid, which we have, and here's the other thing, the misconception is Jeremy has the best closer in the country, last year. And he's a high school kid from right down the road there. And he is one of the most electric arms in all of NAIA baseball. And he's a college freshman. All right. Now, how does he get there? Somebody did a heck of a good job of getting that kid to sell out to this is the best option for you. So I think the difference is when you see those kids at our level, you really go, wow, that's impressive. One, the kid's a really good player, and how in the world did they get that guy to go to school there, with all those other programs and things like that. So I think that's the biggest thing is the best advice I could give to a high school kid is man, when you start getting those phone calls, if you want to play college baseball, then get interested in the 4 or 5 schools that are calling you, not the 4 or 5 schools that haven't called you that you're waiting, hoping that things are going to work out. Because that's what you see right now, over 2,600 names in the portal. There's a lot of guys that made a choice, and again, not that it was the wrong choice, but, you want this experience to be just like everything else. You want to make the right experience. You want to make the right choice the first time so you get the most out of whatever experience that you're in.
All right, let's go around one time here before we finish up and give you guys a chance to clean up any loose ends, maybe touch on anything that I didn't touch on that's important or answer anything. I don't know, whatever. Just final thoughts and words from you guys. We'll go for Coach Sheets first.
Again, Josh, appreciate the opportunity to do this. And I think when any chance that we have as NAIA coaches to put ourselves out in different forums and talk about the level and talk about the development piece, talk about the relationship and probably, again, as we mentioned earlier, like just start to educate some people on what's really happening here. I think we got to take full advantage of it and do it. And, I know Coach Barry and I've talked to you. I take a lot of flack for doing videos before games, but I'm all in the spirit of promoting NAIA baseball. Billy's one of the best interviews I've ever been a part of. And we've done a podcast together. We did the interview on the field together, and it was about promotion, not only of him and his program, but it's promotion of NAIA baseball, period. And I think we on this level, I'll tell you what, Josh, there's 3 on this call, and there's 185 others that are as passionate about it as we are. That this level, just there's something in it, man. You start to be reorganizing your DNA and you become an NAIA guy. There's something in there that just bonds us, but we also understand the opportunity that we have. We also, as both coaches have mentioned, and I'll echo, is we have a chance sometimes to fix some people. We have a chance to give them that next opportunity. We have a chance to come in and, as Billy mentioned, rewrite their story and help them as they progress as a 22, 23-year-old college graduate that maybe doesn't play professional baseball. But guess what? Life is standing there at your doorstep. And maybe because of the way that we run our program and the way that we're able to develop that real personal relationship, we're able to help them be successful because of it. That's what we think our level is about. So much more than double plays and doubles in the gap. Like there's just so much more to what our level allows us to be able to do, but also the opportunity that we have for those players. So I'd say give us a shot, but definitely do your homework. I think if our high school players, Josh, I know you work for a lot of high school players, just as Billy mentioned, man, be very open to those phone calls. Be very respectful of the fact that we're taking time away from our families to show interest in you, show interest in us. And I think if you laid out all the options that you have, so we're talking about the table with all the hats, and you're going through the pros and the cons, I think if you lift up a hat and say, you know what, this is the best fit for me because of all these pros, there's very few cons. Oh, they play NAIA baseball. It is about fit. And that portal should be an eye opener to most high school players that, hey, maybe you're not looking at the right thing. Maybe you haven't asked yourself the right questions. Maybe you don't know the answers to those right questions. And I would start there before I start fielding phone calls and trying to sort through, hey, what colors do I want to wear? Hey, what's the coolest sweatshirt I can put on? That's going to lead you down a path in 2 years where our phones will be ringing off the hook because you didn't make the right decision, which is great for us. But I think you'd rather have high school players on the front end be more educated and thoughtful as they approach that process.
Great stuff. Coach Neffendorf, final thoughts.
I'd like to thank you as well for having us on. I think this has been a really good deal. And I think, you know, the key word that keeps getting thrown out here is the education piece. And Jeremy just hit on a lot of things, and Billy before that. You know, one thing that Jeremy just talked about, kind of lifting up that hat. The biggest deal for me is, you know, with example being that portal system, you know, these kids, it's the Division I all the time. And I get it. That's the level everybody wants to be at. But, you know, it's amazing how many kids that we talk to, like Billy has already mentioned that, you know, I don't know, up to 75% of any one of our rosters, we've had a kid that has signed, played, or committed to the Division I at some point. And a lot of the times is, you know, if we're on the phone with these kids, and there's 3 other Division Is, they're going to choose that route over us, and then they're going to come back at some point when there's a high probability. Because I think that at our level, we can actually check a lot of the boxes that maybe they don't think to ask a question about or get educated on with that Division I, that when they get there and they find out the reason they're leaving, maybe part of their story is there wasn't a box check that, you know, they want to check. And, you know, there's a lot of things that can happen with them leaving, but the education piece is gigantic. Nobody's really educated on it at all. You know, you hear the word NAIA, it's like, oh, no, I'm not going around. I was guilty of that. I still specifically remember where I was in junior college before I got hurt. And somebody said, hey, man, Concordia down the road. Why don't you go there? I said, I'm not going there. And they ended up going to the World Series that year and had 3 drafts. And, you know, I don't even think I could have pitched on that team. You know, I was just okay. But it was the, you know, I'm not going there. So, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions like we talked about, and you know, this level, there's something about it. Not a lot of people leave it after they get into it when you talk about coaches and whatever it may be. But I can tell you this, I've been fortunate to be around a lot of really good coaches from my time with coaching select ball, high school, junior college, even my short stint at the Division I in this. Some of the best I know are at this level. And, you know, you take a look at Billy, he's been at this level for a long time. He's had opportunities. Jeremy's been involved with a lot of really good things, and he's back at it. And there are a ton of coaches at this level that can coach high-level baseball. And, you know, they've chosen to either stay or maybe nothing's happened. But, you know, it is a very good level, and it checks a lot of boxes for kids and coaches. And it's just something that people need to continue to get educated with.
I feel like when I meet NAIA coaches or former NAIA coaches, like they love it there. And I think Jeremy, you and I had talked about it, just the lifestyle. Like it's not as much pressure. You're free to make your more freedom to make your own schedules and do things. Just the lifestyle itself is better, which keeps you motivated and always, you know, rejuvenated to get back. I don't know. It just kind of seems like that talking to you guys.
No, you're right.
That
Dead on.
You're really right.
it's not business so much and so much pressure, I guess, and anxiety and stress in that way, which allows you to just be a better coach on the field and enjoy it more.
All that pressure comes from the guys you're looking at right now. Like our ADs want us to win, but I guarantee we're putting more pressure on ourselves than anyone over the hill is putting on us. Like that's just the level. That's where
I mean,
we're
it's
at.
like last week. I mean, last week I've been in Atlanta since I went to Atlanta Wednesday through Sunday to watch my son play. I wasn't recruiting. I was just a guy sitting in a chair watching my kid play.
Did anybody ask you if your college team was any good?
No, nobody asked me if my college team was any. You're actually the first person that's ever asked us that, so I'm pretty impressed.
Completely embarrassing, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Josh ain't scared. He'll go
The
in there.
ignorance behind all of us in the uneducatedness of.
I love it.
But that's why we're doing this. You know,
Sure.
like this needs to be. We need to be better.
Hey, I'll tell you like we tell everybody else, man. We got uniforms and everything. It's awesome.
Yeah, see that. Coach Barry, take us home, man. What do you got? Final thoughts.
I think two things. I think the first thing is if you really want to know something about this level, check it out when the World Series hits. Because two reasons. One, Lewiston, Idaho is one of the best venues in the country to run a tournament. They've got it figured out. It's a small town with a big-time baseball field. I think it's the 1 week out of the year that our guys feel like they're playing big-time college baseball. They're signing autographs. They are the show. And if you get an opportunity to turn on, get online and watch those games and buy the field pass, you see some really, really great baseball. And I think that's what speaks to our level is when you see those teams play, when you see a Gwinnett play a LSU Shreveport, or you see a Wesleyan play a St. Thomas, or you see a Southeastern play a Lewis and Clark. I mean, and, you see an Oklahoma City play somebody, you see a USAO play somebody, it's hard to find a better game, than what's going on right then. So I think that's from the education piece. That's really when I think our level gets showcased the most. And it really does it. What it does is it does itself a lot of favors that week because it really does show at the top levels, what this place can do. I think the other piece is for me, it's the relationships. I've been a small school guy my entire life, and that's, whether it's by choice or whether it's by whatever, but I think it's the relationship piece. It's not a dog eat dog, we're not trying to, we're chasing after the same players and doing that. But, what I can tell you about the two guys on this call, I love these guys. I don't like them. I love them, and it's one of those things where I can pick up the phone and I can call Sheets and we can talk for 20 minutes and baseball doesn't even come into the equation. I talk to Brad probably either through text or through phone call once a day since he left. And I know his family extremely well, his wife Megan. So it's about the relationship. I mean, I'm competing against these guys and we're competing for players and we're doing this, but these guys are more my friends than they are anything else. So you don't get that everywhere. And so, for me, like I said, this level is unique. It's fun. It's different. But at the same time, I think it's a really cool place to be if you kind of peel back the layers and really look at it and really get down to what is important in the college experience. We have as much of that as anybody.
Well, you did a nice job. I have a feeling you're going to be able to turn that program around where you're at.
We're trying, man. We're trying. We're working
at it every day.
That's it.
Oh my gosh. This is good stuff, guys. I appreciate you coming on here. We'll have to do it again. And I think you said it's in Idaho. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
I wrote it down because now that's going to become part of my bucket list. I'm going to that World Series.
There you go.
So thank you guys. This was fun, man, and super educational. And we're going to push it out to a lot of people and cut it up and post clips over the next year and try to grow some awareness of what you guys are doing, what NAIA has to offer. So thank you very much.
You bet.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, guys.
All right, fellas, we'll see you.